This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Does it sound like I have a little cold, little nasal action going on, little chest? We must be heading into fall. I have my first cold of the season, so bear with me, will you, my Page Publishing Book Club fans? You're going to love this first guy we got here, Jerry Parrish. He got the idea for his book in his early 20s. It only took him about 35 to 40 years to get it written and published, but now he promotes it with a vengeance. So listen up, he talks about that a little bit later on. His book is a murder mystery based on a place he worked when he was young, and it's called Steel Toes and Teeth. Tell us more, Jerry.
Well, Steel Toes and Teeth is a murder mystery about a young newspaper reporter by the name of Daniel Palmer, who reluctantly goes undercover to investigate why multiple supposedly accidental deaths have occurred at a train wrecking yard. So after seeing death right before his eyes, he's now convinced that there's more to what's going on than meets the eye. And it's this time he's totally in, and he knows he's got to go out and prove what he saw was murder, not really accident. His big issue is that he's been working there for 3 years and really hasn't gotten a shot at doing any kind of a regular beat or do a story, line of his own or anything. So he feels like he's kind of been put aside, had to do work for other people, things along that line. And so this opportunity might be something that gets him moved up in the ranks, so to speak.
You said you were inspired when you were a young man. What inspired you?
The truth is, I actually worked at a train wrecking yard, similar to the one that's described in the book, and my summer between my sophomore and junior year in college. And I have to say, it's the hardest job I ever had in my life, and it was dangerous, just like I described in the book. So taking the setting of the train wrecking yard and some of the people that I met, I kind of formulated the characters and got it all set up to where the storyline fell into place that way.
Does this character live on after this book?
Yes, I actually have a couple other story ideas for the character, and so I'm formulating those as we speak. I've actually got another book that I'm writing that's not involving this character. So, but I'm going to come back to it because there are a couple other good storylines I've got for it. So.
I like your title, Steel Toes and Teeth.
Yeah, that kind of explains itself pretty early on in the book. It's about an interaction between the main character Daniel Palmer and another character in the book, and so as you read it and you get to that point, you'll pick up on the name pretty quickly from that. I don't want to give it away, but that's where that comes from.
And from what I understand, you have no problem promoting your book.
I've actually I've done a TV spot in one of the stations in Topeka, Kansas. I've had a book signing at a winery. Just spent this past weekend going up to Nebraska in Lincoln for the Nebraska Book Festival. Getting ready to go to the Kansas Book Festival. There's another book festival in Iowa, and so I'm trying to make the circuit, trying to get the name out there, and trying to let people know all about it.
And you're setting all these things up yourself.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. The one thing we hear from a lot of authors is they're just reluctant to go out there and promote the book. What do you say to that?
I say that's the only way that people are going to know it's out there. The hard part I thought was writing the book, but really the hard part is the PR and the marketing of the book. When you're trying to do this all on your own, it's really tough to try to get the name out there. But the only way that you're really going to get recognized is if you try to do all the different forums and try different ways. You got to use the internet. You've got to use Facebook. You got to go out there and sell your book in front of people. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get it noticed, in all the different ways possible, so that the name Steel Toes and Teeth it becomes a common everyday name, and people will go, "Yeah, I heard about that." That's what I want to hear. Yeah, I heard about that Steel Toes and Teeth book.
All right, good work, Jerry, and great advice for you guys still shy about getting out there and promoting that book. Next up, Celestine Carr survived triple-negative breast cancer, and she lived to share her experience in her book entitled "Cancer Defeated."
I had 2 operations back to back. The first time they didn't get it. It was one of them nodes I think they did not get. And they went back in the following week. But everything just went so well. Of course, I had chemo for 3 months, and I had radiation for 30 days.
Wow.
And the first day of chemo, the second day I would get somewhat sick, but I was able to make it through. Thank the Lord. I had so many people that was praying for me and just believing with me, and people I didn't know would send messages. And my son is a minister, and he would tell about it, and which was fine with me. And I had so many wishers. And, it's just great. I just feel wonderful. I just feel so privileged because when I got my cancer, so many people had cancer. They have passed on, and even since then.
So you had breast cancer. How did you find it?
Well, I was just on the phone one night talking to a cousin of mine, and I said, I feel a lump in my breast. She said, oh, it's probably nothing. And I didn't even go to the doctor the following week because I had a doctor appointment to see my general practitioner, so I didn't go to the following week. And that's when, I told the doctor about it. She said, oh, it's probably nothing. But I was so concerned. She said, we'll check and see. Because I take my mammograms when I was supposed to take them. So I went to Kingsville to check on the old mammogram, and it didn't show up in there. I just had one. So I said, put me into a doctor right away. And they did that very day, a specialist. They found it, and the doctor said because there was a ring around my breast. They said it would have been worse, but the cells could not get enough blood to survive.
So you were really lucky.
Oh, honey, luck is not the word. I was really blessed, but I understand what you're saying. It inspired me to write a book because, when I went through it, my son, when he found out, he says, Mama, cancer doesn't mean death. So you got to trust the Lord. You got to believe in God and have faith, keep the faith. And that's what my two daughters and my son told me. And I just believed that. And I just went through so well. And I wanted to write the book to help others to know that they can make it too, that God is faithful, to trust Him. And I just wanted to help someone. I wanted to inspire others through the writing of my book. I always have loved to write poetry. I taught school for 32 years, and I would write after a unit or doing a unit or reading or whatever. I would just write something catchy or write, some poems or whatever. And I said, my goodness, I was going to write a little short story about my cancer journey. I said, wait a minute, let me put it in the form of poetry. Yes.
So do you talk to other survivors about your book?
Yes, I have. And some have called me and said, I read your book. It's so inspiring. I've had people to call me and tell me. I was in upstate New York maybe about a year ago, and the lady was getting on the plane, and she had cancer and everything, and I began to talk to her. I had my niece send her one of my books, and she called me and said that she appreciated it so much. So it's a matter of just reaching out, helping others, and, you see the children, in the hospitals, St. Jude and Shriners and all that, and it just breaks your heart, not just them, because this book is not just for cancer survivors, it's for anyone that have any type of disease, incurable disease. My mother died of cancer, and so I can relate to that, and I've had other loved ones to pass because of cancer.
Was there ever a time where you thought you weren't going to make it?
No, there never was a time. I just, for some reason, just trust God and believe that I was going to make it. I never saw death or anything like that. I just saw me going through my treatments and living. And I know that was just, it was just because I was surrounded by so many great people. It's good to have friends. It's good to have friends. And I found out that my church family, friends in my community, friends far away, they would hear my story and they would tell their people in their churches, they would tell their pastors, and people would say, I'm praying. They would send me messages, send it to my son, and let me know that they were praying for me and they believed I was going to make it. So there was never a time when I thought that I was going to pass.
That is awesome, Celestine. Thank you. Samuel Mackey wrote a poem in the 4th grade and didn't write again till he was in grad school at UVA. He says he figured out how to solve problems through poetry. His book is entitled Well-Versed Reality, and you write about everything, don't you? Feminine mystique, business, spin doctors, pets. How many poems have you written?
There are 61. Thought Longfellow had maybe 20 or so.
Do you get to read these in public?
No, I haven't done anything like that so far. I'm living in an assisted living facility, so I don't get around much.
Maybe
Um,
everybody in that assisted living facility should be reading your book.
well, thanks.
You don't have a format where you could stand up in front of people right where you are and talk about your book?
Oh, I think I probably do.
I think you should. I think you should say, I need a microphone. I want to read my poems, and people are going to go crazy. It's just a thought.
No, it's a good thought. I started out writing the poems, and I quit for a while, and then I began again. And when I began again, people started asking me, "Have you ever published anything?" And I said, "No." And people asked me so many times, "Have you published?" that I thought maybe I should publish. And there are situations in life which need to be explained. And I found out I could do it with my poetry. And in a computer program, there's a command that says, go to. But now in poetry, the idea is come from, because you're using your intuition. That's how I proceeded. And it got to the place I had so many poems I had written, I decided I would publish.
Well, I think your title's interesting. Where did that come from?
Well, if someone is well-versed, then that means they have a lot of information. But also well-versed could mean something that has verses in it, and they're good verses. And reality means that I can connect to reality with that which I'm writing.
Nice.
So actually, there's a pun in the title.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite poem you could read for me?
I probably do. We used to go to the grad school happy hours up here at UVA. And I would go there, and people would socialize with each other, but it wasn't clear what they wanted to do. So finally, one night, I came home from the grad school mixer, and I sat down in the basement and wrote this poem. It's called The Grad School Mixer. To stand about and down the beers and wear time-honored mask, to strike a pose to please one's peers and nimbly go on with the task. Each student of the in-crowd knows it's come again, it's Friday night, and so each drops their books and goes to hobnob with the erudite. The grad school mixer starts at 5, and no one could be gladder. So off I go, nerves come alive, all thumbs and left feet up the social ladder. Mm-hmm. Hello, Marie. Oh, your name's Sue? Your facial cream did wonders. Sometimes I wonder what to do when I make social blunders. But seldom need I long lament about these sad affairs, for I too get my compliments on longer but receding hairs. Our chemistry is colloid, although we came to mix. Each tiny group tries to avoid the faux pas to be more than 6. And though each stag might long to meet the doe he scans through squinted eye, those who get closer than 3 feet may meet with some convenient lie. But maybe lies are kinder than truthful words that numb by giving some reminder, like take off, Clyde, go suck your thumb. And so I'll think on things like these, on status and on class, and wonder why I'm ill at ease when youth remembers Veritas. But just before I reach my brink of odd remote distress, one final can, I'll down and think, ah, well, who gives a hoot, I guess.
All right, Samuel Mackey, thanks for the reading. We got to take a really short break, but we're coming right back, and you should too. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you: printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
We are back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I am your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Tired of being inundated with technology, K.E. Draper needed a simpler place to go, and that is the subject of her first book entitled Gem of the First Water. So it's a double-edged sword, right? You despise technology, but you had to use it to write your book about a simpler life.
So, yes. Yep, absolutely. But I use it as limitedly as possible.
What'd you do in real life?
I was a high-fire stoneware potter for a little over 30 years and did cooking and some private catering. Was a mother and a wife and all of those good things.
So, what's your book about?
It's a fiction fantasy about a parallel place, about a people that exist and they grow and they move on from their homes, but they manage to somehow stay connected while this world is growing and expanding, and they just do it in simpler ways. Parts of their lives are the traveling and the planning and but they live by simple means. Everybody is dependent on what they grow and what is hunted, and they have their own skills, whether it be metalwork or weaving or just simple things like that, fishing and living from the wharfs. And they just, in small villages that they develop, continue this way of life and care for each other. It's a man named Parrish, and he is narrating it, the first part of the story, which leads you into a little beginning history of the place and the people. But he is coming from this world back to his world.
Is it like a separate universe?
No, it's a world, it's a land, it's just sort of parallel to ours.
So, you have a narrator that kind of takes us on this journey through a world where there is no technology and there is no government, and people are living by their own means in these villages.
Everything is shared. Everything is done sort of for the benefit of everyone in the city or the village. And I suppose the biggest conflict is that there's a division in the enchanted who are in this world, and there is the good factor and the bad factor, and the bad factor of the enchanted doesn't like that man is expanding through the land, because the enchanted in the book are all very much part of the land and everything that they hold dear. And I suppose the good enchanted work with the humans and see that, a compromise can be made and that everything can work equally for all people.
What a concept, huh?
So yeah. And so I just hope people will read it and that they will get some enjoyment out of it.
You can't ask for more than that, can you?
So nope. I don't. Everybody doesn't get to be the top of the charts, but just even that some people would read it and enjoy it would be a great satisfaction.
All right, K.E. Draper, thank you. Roy DePillat was a school teacher in Tennessee, wrote all of his life, and his first book is entitled The Beginning of Everything. Now, you say your book is filled with shocking facts that'll appeal to people familiar with biblical stories who thought they knew them. The operative word here being thought. Explain.
For example, most people would think that Adam's wife's name while in the Garden of Eden was Eve. But it wasn't. She wasn't named Eve until they left the Garden of Eden. Most people say that God told Adam and Eve not to eat from a forbidden tree. But that's not true. He told that to Adam, and she must have told him. Most people believe that there were 2 of every kind of animal on Noah's Ark. But that's not true. There were 7 of clean animals and 2 unclean animals. Most people believe that the 40 days of rain caused all of the water that created the flood for Noah's Ark. But if you read the Bible carefully, you see that the waters of the deep burst forward before the rains even started. So what I've done is done shock factors on things that people thought they understood, but that are not actually in the Bible. And all those examples that I gave you are things that could be seen in the Bible, but most people don't read literature carefully. So it's also sort of a study on how to read things and know what the writer is really saying. And that's wrapped around a narrative. So it's historical fiction to the point that I believe that the Bible is historically accurate. So I've made up stories, what Adam could have said to Eve, what life was like in the garden, what life was like after the sin, what it was like for Noah to be on the boat for hundreds of days with his children and his wife and his sons' wives. And so it's a narrative, and it's very descriptive, got vivid details of nature, and it's not just the beautiful nature of the garden, it's the violence of the wrath of the flood. And then it deals with some issues like the age of the earth. The earth doesn't have to be millions of years old, because if you really understand what happened with the flood and the violence of the upheaval of the earth, as well as the 40 days of rain, then you can see how new mountains could be formed, great rifts can be torn, continents could have been made. So it's sort of a battle, in a sense, to me, to so-called science, which says that the earth is millions of years old. And that's not necessarily true, and there's actually no evidence of it.
Let me ask you this. You were a teacher, or were you a
Yes.
biblical scholar? You're saying that you just read the Bible carefully and you were able to determine some of the things that you write in your book.
Yes. Now, the translations make no difference. What I'm saying is that as a teacher, I did the same thing with all classic literature. I did the same thing with Shakespeare's sonnets. I did the same thing with Macbeth, Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. There are things that are not normally taught because the readers and even the scholars don't know them. You could look at an illustration, for example, of the Garden of Eden. It'll show a snake in a tree and Adam and Eve. That whole picture is wrong. Adam was not with Eve when the snake tempted her, and the snake was not in the tree, because he referred to the tree in the middle of the garden, not the tree in which he was in, or this tree. So most artists and scholars don't read what's right there in front of them, and it makes no difference what translation you look at. Those facts are simple. Okay. And what I've done is use the same skill that I had as a teacher in unraveling secrets of literature that are right before people's eyes.
All right, Roy, thank you. Finally, Sybil Paget is 84 years old, and she just published her very first book. It is entitled Rummaging for Truth. She started writing it like 40 years ago when she got wrapped up in what she considers a very dangerous movement that's picking up steam today, and her book serves as a warning. Sybil.
I was interested in the New Age movement some 40 years ago, and I had a neighbor who was involved in mind control. I didn't know anything about it. We all, back then, were very naive about such things, and she invited me to one of her meetings, and I went, and I thought, gee, this is kind of fun. That's how I got started studying the occult, the metaphysical world. Now, it wasn't anything like Satan worshiping, and this was so close to being what the church needed that I thought, oh boy, I'm doing God's work. I'm learning. Well, I was learning, but I was learning what the Bible specifically tells you to stay out of. But having been a Catholic all my life, I didn't know anything about the Bible. I'd never read it. So anyway, I just got deeply involved in it, and it's a very dangerous place to be.
Did something happen to you?
No, it's just people that know the Bible. It's called the angel of light. It's darkness. And as I watch television, I noticed, especially here in the last few years, that quite a few programs, they're about the occult, talking to dead people, and people are searching for the spirits, and they do not have any inclination what they're getting into, because these spirits can affect your life.
Did they affect your life?
Well, yes, of course they do. Of course, it's nothing that you can see from the outside, but they didn't affect my life in the way that was any outward thing. It was just, I was doing something like kids go behind the barn and smoke a joint or something like that. It's just not something that the Lord wants his people to get involved in. It's darkness.
So how long did you stay in this movement?
About 12 years.
Oh.
I studied it for about 13 years. It was stimulating to the mind, and we thought, oh, we're doing something that is intellectually mind stimulating, whereas the other people are so dumb. We're seeing the light, and they're just not. We believed in reincarnation, and we believed that we had guides, and that through listening to the spirit world, that and coming back to reincarnate, that we would eventually become master souls. I mean, so many people's lives are intimidated by the spirit world, and they don't have any idea. And there are spirits of anger and lust, and they get attached to people. Some people are possessed, and some people are not. They're just in their environment. I say it's not just a cult, the New Age movement, but it's a cultural trend. And it is being promoted in a way that conditions people at every level of our culture to accept a new definition of reality. And I've been aware of the change for years, and it's frightening. Okay. People do not know how these spirits changed their lives.
This is a wake-up call for people.
Yes, absolutely, for someone who's been there, done that. And I know how dangerous these spirits have tried to kill me. I couldn't tell you how many times. But it's spiritual warfare is what it is. It is spiritual warfare in every sense. People have no idea what's going on in the spiritual world, and they think it's so much fun to be chasing these spirits and talking to them, and it's very dangerous.
Well, Sybil, I'll take your word for that, and I think I'll pass your book along to some of my ghost hunting friends. Thank you for the warning. And I got to tell you, you are a shining example of it's never too late. 84 years old and having the discipline and the energy to sit down every day and write and then find a publisher and go through all the work that entails, like rewriting, it's impressive and inspiring. And anyone listening who thinks you missed the boat, you did not. Page Publishing is here for you. We don't care how old you are. All right, that's a wrap for this edition, the Falling into Fall edition of the Page Publishing Book Club, complete with the change of season cold. Thank you for staying with us. And if you missed anything or you want to check out some of our other shows, just go to our podcast at 710WOR.com and download it anytime you want. Thank you, authors. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini, and I hope you've been inspired to, come on, write on.